How does a senior minister or a senior pastor promote his doctrine in a church? In the book of Revelation chapter 1, in the verse 11, the Bible says that Jesus Christ, speaking to John concerning the revelation, he said, "What you see, write in the book and send to the 7 churches. Unless a man of God's doctrines are documented, they risk fizzling out with a passage of time." All the many teachings that the church has been blessed in history, the only ones we know are those that are documented. Now, when Moses also received the law, there are about 15 major things he did to immortalize his doctrine. Number one, Moses wrote down the doctrine on scrolls, the laws that he received. He wrote it on scrolls. So if a man of God, a pastor, or a senior pastor wants to promote his doctrine, they have to be documented. Just as Moses did, Deuteronomy chapter 31. Paul told Timothy that the things which you have heard from me among many witnesses, commit the same to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. So whatever that Paul you have received, you pass it on to your Timothy, and your Timothy passes it on to the rest of the generations. How is the passing of the doctrines done? Number one, Moses wrote the law on scrolls. If they are not documented, they will be diluted with time. Number two, Moses created multiple copies for safekeeping and made it available to key people like the priests and elders of the nation. What it means is that there are certain sensitive things about the church that may not be committed to the entire church, but there are certain sensitive and specific people in the church that must have copies of those things. It may be how pastors' welfare is treated. It may be on how churches are planted in this ministry. It may be about how people are appointed in this ministry. It may be about how people are dismissed. So disciplinary issues, appointment issues, financial management, regulations, adjudications, how the counseling, all of these should be documented. And if they cannot be made available to the entire church, they have to be made available to key and specific individuals in the church. That is what Moses did. He created copies for safekeeping. Number two, and made them available to key people like the priests and elders of the nation. Moses also instituted to the nation that children and strangers should be gathered every 7 years at the Feast of Tabernacles for the law to be read publicly. Every church must have its feast. Every church must have its festivals. And at those feasts and those festivals, the doctrines and the teachings of the church are to be recited, are to be proclaimed, are to be spoken to the church. That is what Moses instructed, that every 7 years, whether you are a stranger or you are a native of the country, you should be gathered, including children, and the priest will stand in front of the nation and read the law to them. Once in a while, the doctrines of the senior pastor should be read in the church. Number four, Moses appointed teachers and instructors to teach the law. A pastor must have specific people he trains with understanding into his doctrine, so that they become custodians of the doctrine to teach others. Like Paul told Timothy, what he has heard, he should teach it and pass it on to others. Moses also encouraged parents to teach the law to their children. What it means is that the children's department of the church should be schooled in the doctrine of the church. And until they are indoctrinated, the doctrines are imbibed in them, they may risk losing it out as they pass their days. Moses also built altars and monuments to commemorate events that were written in the law, like the various feasts. We can also name our doctrine monuments, artifacts, cathedrals, buildings. They help us to remember the doctrine. I am sure if you have followed Church of Pentecost, Almost every town there is a Makion temple. They are mentioning his name to remember his works. In the same way, we must also have monuments, buildings, plaques, whatever, and have inscriptions of our doctrines on them so that people can easily remember them. Moses created stones with the law inscribed on them. I believe that in our generation, we may not carve stones, but we can have bracelets, we can have t-shirts, we can have banners. We call them church bits. They can be carriers of the doctrines of the church. The Bible says Moses also composed songs to teach the law. So what it means is that every church, the things the church believes in should be in the songs of the church. The pastor must believe in writing songs, and the songs should be about the doctrines that are taught in the church. Why? Moses taught us that to immortalize a doctrine, you must compose songs out of them. The Bible also says that Moses appointed leaders to enforce the law. I believe that how to appoint leaders may include employment and recruitment of people who may be trained to work as staff of the company to ensure compliance with the various doctrines of the church. The doctrine of the church may include even management of the finances of the church. And if the church does not have well qualified and trained staff who may ensure that every member of the church complies and follows the doctrines of the church, it may never be followed. Now, Moses also established rituals, ceremonies to commemorate events that happen in the Bible. Our conferences, our special programs may also be named after the various doctrines. Moses instituted sacrifices and offerings like atonement of sin based on the law. There should be sacrifices that are made to protect and to preserve the doctrines of a church. If we have seen that the disciples died for a cause, it makes that cause very important. If people do not sacrifice for the things the church believes in and sacrifice for the things the church teaches, it may never be regarded, because people only sacrifice for things that are important. Now, Joshua, who succeeded Moses, was also instructed to follow the things that Moses has taught. This is where succession comes in, and the next generation of believers should be trained to believe in the doctrines of the church, so that later they will not change ordinances and laws like marriage, like all of these things that the church may believe in. Moses encouraged future generations to follow the law. I believe that if we follow these principles, not ignoring any of them, we are certainly going to have the doctrines of the church imparted to the church, and everyone in the church upholding the doctrines of the church. God richly bless you.